This is Dateline News and Conversation. My guest tonight, she's back, Natalia Saghiyan from Yerevan in Armenia for an update on what is happening with all of the people who were displaced from Nagorno-Karabakh, Artsakh, what is happening with their own constitution, which I understand is being changed. And I want to know if there's any hope for a future relationship with Russia after Armenia seems to be going towards the United States and the West. Natalia, welcome back to the show.
Thank you for having me again.
So let me ask you first of all, the last time that we talked, there was an enormous migration, exodus of people from Nagorno-Karabakh. How many of them had to leave and came to cities in Armenia, Yerevan, and what has happened to them?
Well, first of all, according to official numbers, 106,000 Armenians fled from Nagorno-Karabakh to Armenia. This is actually pretty much all of them because around 35 to 40,000 Armenians left Artsakh after the 44-day war in 2020. Some of them stayed in Armenia, some of them continued their journey to Russia or European countries. So by September 19, 2023, they were about 106,000, let's say 110,000 Armenians living in Nagorno-Karabakh. Almost all of them fled. We had about 1,500 casualties during the so-called, I said, anti-terrorist operation unleashed by Azerbaijan on 19th of September 2023. So 1,500 casualties we had in the Defense Army of Artsakh. And by official numbers, 106,000 Armenians from Nagorno-Karabakh were displaced and moved to Armenia. As of now, official numbers say that 27,000 people left Armenia. Armenians from Artsakh left Armenia in different directions. Some of them, majority of them, went to Russia. Some of them settled in Europe because immediately after this horrible attack and aggression of Azerbaijan, suddenly West, which was during the blockade of Artsakh that lasted 9 months, was coming up with statements that this is very wrong. Azerbaijan has to remove the blockade and let people move back and forth to Armenia, from Armenia to Artsakh and back. Suddenly, after all these people left, they stopped talking about rights of people of Artsakh for self-determination, their rights to live on the land of their grandfathers. They all suddenly started talking about humanitarian aid and how easy it will be for people from Artsakh to settle in Europe. To foster, I think, the further fleeing of these people to Europe, because for Nicole Pashinyan, accumulation of so many people from Artsakh, Armenians from Artsakh in Armenia, can be dangerous because all these people lost their motherland because of Pashinyan. So what he would want them to do is not to stay in Armenia. So these are the numbers. Of course, it's a very, very difficult situation because the government is distributing certain amounts of money, of course. But obviously, if we compare numbers of humanitarian aid in money that Pashinyan's government receives from the USAID, from different European states. It's much more money than he gives out to our people from Artsakh. And then there is another trick. For some strange reason, the government of Armenia decided to replace, to exchange passports of Armenians of Artsakh. Before all this, they were all receiving Armenian passports, the blue passports with the Republic of Armenia written on the top, ordinary passport like I have. But they had the code of the entity that issued the passport was 070. That's the entity of Artsakh. And now the new passports that they receive do not bear this number anymore. And of course, they had a registration stamp where they are registered. In passports they received before, it was a stamp that they are registered in the Republic of Nagorno-Karabakh. Now this stamp doesn't exist anymore. So this is my opinion, that Pashinyan's government wants to wipe out the fact that these people once lived in Nagorno-Karabakh at all. Suddenly they all become like full status citizens of Armenia. And this is another trick I think that he is trying to do. When we talk about this new constitution, this is all same agenda, to wipe out the history of Nagorno-Karabakh from history of our Armenia as such. And one more thing I would like us to tackle briefly, the new educational reform that Pashinyan's government is pushing forward is about changing the name of the subject in school program. Now we have history of means history of Armenian nation. And he wants to replace it with history of Armenia, which is a very significant thing because for 630 years, Armenians didn't have statehood, but continued living in this region under different states. In Persian Empire, or Ottoman Empire, Russian Empire, but Armenians lived here for centuries. So if we change the name of the subject, it means that we will have to talk only about periods when Armenia had statehood, which means that we will have to forget 630 years of history. This is exactly what Azerbaijan says, that Armenians used to live here at some point of time. They disappeared, and then they were brought back again by Russian Empire to the region in the beginning of the 20th century, and Armenians and Russians together destroyed Azerbaijani heritage and built Armenian Republic. See, this is what they're doing.
Well, it's called historical nihilism, a complete denial of the past. It is not unique to Armenia. President Putin and the Russians have been fighting against this rewriting of history, destroying of. Yeah. So, what I would like to know is what happened to these 100,000 people who were displaced? Where did they end up? Did they all come to Yerevan? Was there anybody there to help them? Are they living on welfare? I mean, 100,000 people being displaced is a huge problem.
Yes. Well, some of them, majority of them, of course, ended up in Yerevan. I wouldn't say that there was a coordinated assistance from the state, but lots of organizations, including our party, groups of volunteers, all consolidated around helping Armenians of Artsakh. The government had several programs, like, for example, medical care workers were employed by medical institutions in Yerevan, not only in Yerevan, all over Armenia, wherever they had shortage of staff. All these people were immediately employed, but not all of them wanted to continue working in medical institutions in Armenia. there is still a problem of employment because, as you said, 100,000 people, it's a lot. There is a problem with school books because one part of this 100,000 are school children, and we were not prepared for this. Like in the class of my youngest daughter, they had six children from Artsakh joining their class, and there were not enough school books. So we, parents of the class, we kind of decided to solve this problem because school was not able to solve it by itself. So we organized it, like we bought books for the children for them to be able to study, and many classes at schools did the same. So the society itself was very ready to help. Some of these people went to regions of Armenia where luckily local governments were very eager to help and very helpful. For example, mayor of Masis, one of the largest cities of Armenia, he immediately came up with a statement saying that whoever would like to move to Masis region can come directly to his office, and he appointed staff to deal with it. So most of them are placed. Of course, accommodation could be better, but because of a big number of Russian relocants that came to Armenia after the commencement of the special military operation in Ukraine. Of course, there was a crisis with accommodation, and it still is because prices went up as we spoke about it during our last conversation. But today, 4 months later, more or less, we can say that Armenians from Artsakh are accommodated. More or less, they have jobs because Defense Ministry also announced that they will employ all military specialists from Defense Army of Artsakh. But many people refused to work for Armenian Ministry of Defense because of obvious reasons, because Armenia didn't help Artsakh on 19th of September when Azerbaijan unleashed this aggression, and Armenia declared that Armenia will not engage. But more or less all people are accommodated, they have jobs, good or bad. The government, as I said, is paying them certain welfare, something about $250 a month, but considering very high rent, it's almost nothing.
Wow, well, that was my big concern. What happened to all of these people that were displaced? But you're mentioning that Saghiyan, or no, Pashinyan, your president, prime minister, wants to change the constitution. Oh my God, who's behind this? Is this America? Is this the EU? Who's and what is it really going to mean? Changing your constitution? That is really significant.
It's a very complicated combination of factors which are, I think, guiding Pashinyan on this. First of all, this peace treaty with Azerbaijan that he was talking about all the time, and he made it his personal brand and a brand of his government, that he will bring us peace with Azerbaijan. Then it was a crossroad of peace. At first, it was just his agenda, then it was crossroad of peace, which he represented very, beautifully with presentation in Tbilisi, Georgia, at the Transcaucasian Summit in Georgia months ago. And now today, he's not talking about peace treaty anymore because Azerbaijan refuses to sign whatever peace treaty, of course, because Aliyev doesn't want peace. Aliyev wants Sunni. The southeast region of Armenia, he wants that piece of land that would allow him to have a biland communication with Turkey. So he doesn't want any peace treaty. At the same time, after having forced Pashinyan, through his European Western masters, to declare Artsakh as a part of Azerbaijan in Prague on October 6, 2022, when Aliyev was very eager to continue negotiations in the West. And he got what he wanted. Pashinyan announced that he recognizes territorial integrity of Azerbaijan. He did it in Prague, but Charles Michel was there from Brussels, President Macron was there, and Erdogan was there. So they all actually cooked this uh, treason against Armenia and Artsakh. And today, when it has now it is Aliyev's turn to fulfill his promises that he gave to Charles Michel, to Saint President Macron, and to other leaders from Brussels and Washington. Suddenly, Aliyev says, "You know what? We don't want any West in South Caucasus because we think Russia is our ally, and we want to negotiate with. We want to, if we negotiate with Armenia about anything, we want to do it in Moscow." But Pashinyan has already took this road, turning his back to Russia and heading towards Europe, towards West, to be more precise. So today, it's just not possible for him any longer to say no to his Western curators and say yes to Russia again, because he already said and did so many horrible things against Russia that it is not possible anymore. So Aliyev is gambling here and Aliyev is winning here. Because on one hand, Aliyev is saying, look, Putin, Pashinyan is the one who brings EU monitoring mission to South Caucasus, which is a direct action against Russia. And Aliyev says the same thing to Iran. And this is a very sensitive issue for Iran. We should never forget Iran. Because in this region, apart from Russia, Iran is probably the only state which can be an ally for Armenia in terms of this. But Aliyev is playing with this anti-Russian activity of Pashinyan in this position against Russia, saying that, look, Pashinyan, you say that Armenia, addressing Putin, you say that Armenia is your strategic ally. Mr. Lavrov continues repeating it. But look what Pashinyan is doing. He is bringing EU monitoring mission here. He is irritating Iran. Whereas I, Aliyev, say that we don't want to have anything with the West. We don't want here anyone from, 5,000 kilometers away to come here to South Caucasus and poke their noses into our business. We recognize Russia and Iran and Turkey and Georgia here. We don't want anybody else. So coming back to the Constitution, why this talk started at all? Because in 2022, in his annual speech, Aliyev declared that the only way to achieve peace in South Caucasus is for Armenia to change its constitution, because the constitution that is in force now is based upon the Declaration of Independence of Armenia. Look how deep they go. And the Declaration of Independence of Armenia clearly states that Armenia is a guarantor of security of the Republic of Artsakh, and it states that recognition of Artsakh within the framework of territorial integrity of any other state is a crime and is a treason against Armenia. And our constitution, in its preamble, repeats these statements of the Declaration of Independence of Armenia. So Pashinyan cannot just amend the existing constitution, because according to resolution of the Constitutional Court of Armenia of the 2021, that's already Pashinyan's regime, certain articles and preamble of the Constitution are unchangeable. They cannot be changed or altered or amended in any way. So the only possible way for Pashinyan to achieve this peace treaty, which Azerbaijan clearly states that it's not going to sign whatsoever. Because he says either you surrender the Zangezur corridor, which means surrendering southeast of Armenia to Azerbaijan, I will take it by force and no one can stop me because I did this and this and this and this and nobody stopped me. Because I managed to take over Artsakh and nobody stopped me. I didn't get any punishment, not from the West, neither from the West, nor from anywhere else. Just statements and, loud statements, but no significant sanctions or whatsoever. And it's very funny when Joseph Borrell from Brussels says, all these threats that we hear from Baku regarding territorial integrity of Armenia are very concerning. And Aliyev should remember that he will face strict sanctions. This is not even funny anymore because he repeated these words for so many times during these 3 years after the 44-day war. And nothing happened after that, but nobody takes it seriously. So the only way for Pashinyan to continue selling this peace treaty fairy tale to his electorate is by actually adopting a new constitution. Because otherwise, Aliyev will never sign any peace treaty whatsoever. So Aliyev wants the following, and he stated it very clear in his annual speech of 2023 on December 23rd, 24th, his birthday of President Aliyev. He made a traditional speech and he said that Armenia needs a new constitution because the constitution that Armenia has now is hostile towards its neighbors, meaning that its constitution includes statements about global recognition of genocide of Armenians in Ottoman Empire, statements about Armenia being guarantor of security of the Republic of Artsakh, and certain other things. And Aliyev says that the new constitution has to state clearly the number of personnel in armed forces of Armenia, has to state clearly certain types of weapons that Armenia cannot have. So if our audience follows me, this is a typical capitulation constitution that was forced to Japan to sign after the end of the World War II. Very, very typical capitulation constitution, where it is clearly stated that you cannot have armed forces personnel more than X number, You cannot have this and this and this and these weapons, which means that you refuse to defend yourself voluntarily. You refuse to defend yourself. So this will be a final capitulation of Armenia. And also one thing that Aliyev stated, that Azerbaijan is a country with nearly 100,000 square kilometers of territory, whereas the actual territory of Azerbaijan is 88.6 thousand square kilometers. So he stated his plans to actually occupy something about 14,000 square kilometers of the territory of Armenia. Because as we spoke before in our previous conversation, Constitution of Azerbaijan clearly states that Azerbaijan recognized itself as a legal follower of not of the Soviet Azerbaijan, but of the Azerbaijan Democratic People's Republic of Azerbaijan, which existed only for 2 years, 1918 to 1920. And during these 2 years, the territory of Azerbaijan was about 100,000 square kilometers because they temporarily, for 2 years, controlled Tunis, which they call Zangezur, and which they want now. So this is a very complicated geopolitical situation. And this new constitution is being pushed forward also by Western curators of Pashinyan, because they want to use this situation with Aliyev in order to push Russia out of the region. And how is it going to happen? if Pashinyan actually pushes forward and succeeds, which is a very, very scary perspective, with this new constitution, the peace treaty will be signed, and Azerbaijan will get control over Zangezur, which means even though Azerbaijan is playing with Russia now, opposing the West, but we remember that the big brother of Azerbaijan is Turkey, a NATO member state and the second largest army in NATO. So we do understand that if Azerbaijan gets control over the Zangezur corridor, this means that Turkey will control this corridor. This means that Russia will not get control over that corridor, which means that all this will irritate Iran because the West actually follows two major goals: to push Russia out of the region and to prepare a proper platform, like the field, to attack Iran if when the moment comes. And everything that happens in the Middle East today, in Palestine and in Israel, is a preparation for attacking Iran. So they want to push all this forward really fast to be able to provide control of Azerbaijan over southeast of Armenia in order to plant whatever they want to plant there, to put Iran under pressure and to push Russia out of the region like simultaneously. So this is a very difficult geopolitical game, and Pashinyan made Armenia a ball in this game. So anyone who gets to play just pushes Armenia back and forth at the cost of Armenian national interest.
Wow. Well, you and I have talked before about the massive influence of the United States and the West in Armenia to wrestle Armenia away from Russia. As a final comment, what do you think Russia will do? Will Russia just shrug and say, okay, Armenia is now going to be with the West under American dictatorship? Or does Russia really think it has a chance to continue to influence Armenia? This is a big question for me.
You see, the way Russia usually acts, it's so different from the West usually acts, from the way the West usually acts. Like the West is using soft power. Russia is very bad at using soft power, almost doesn't have any skills in using soft power. But Russia acts very abruptly and vigorously when the moment comes. I do not believe that Russia will give up Armenia so easily. First of all, because Armenian border with Iran is probably the only friendly border for Russia with Iran. And this route that Russia is building, the north-south route that Russia is building through the Black Sea, Georgia, Armenia to Iran, it is very important also for China and India and Iran, obviously. So they're not going to give it up so easy. And the fact that Russian peacekeepers still continue to be located in Nagorno-Karabakh, this also gives us hope that Russia is not giving up so easy. I even can't imagine at what cost did Russia convince Aliyev to allow Russian peacekeepers to stay there if there are no Armenians there anymore? What's the point? And I think that this is also a thing that irritates Russia a lot, that because of not stupid, actually promoted from the West steps of Nikol Pashinyan. I'm talking about recognition of Artsakh within the territorial integrity of Azerbaijan. Russia was forced to um, ask Aliyev to allow its peacekeepers to stay there. So it's kind of now Russia owes Aliyev a favor. And I'm sure that Russia doesn't like to be in a situation when it owes a favor to anyone. And the Turkey factor is here also very strong because Russia doesn't want to confront Turkey so obvious at the moment because of the special military operation in Ukraine. But I'm sure that as it goes in Ukraine, because if we follow the news feed, we see that things are not so good for Ukrainians over there. It hasn't been good for a long time now, and Zelensky is in tight knot. He doesn't know what to do because nobody wants to give him any money. And Poland and Romania and Hungary are already talking about grabbing a piece of land from Ukraine. That when Russia stops wherever it stops, like drawing its new borders in Ukraine, these three countries, three neighbors of Ukraine, will definitely claim their piece of land from Ukraine, from what remains of Ukraine. So it's not good there. It doesn't look good because considering upcoming elections in the United States and upcoming elections in the European Union and in Russia and in Azerbaijan, it is very complicated. So I do not believe that Russia will give up Armenia so easily, but Armenia may become a battlefield, even worse than it's now. And this is what worries me because my country is devastated. Our army, thanks to Pashinyan's efforts to, I don't know, modernize it, to make it fit to NATO standards, which is another terrible disaster. And considering all the losses that we had, so we are in a very, very drastic situation. It's a dire strait for Armenia. This is the only thing that I'm afraid of because Iran will not tolerate any sort of extraterritorial corridor in the territory of Armenia. So Iran will think, okay, if Azerbaijan is to grab Syunik, I'd rather grab it myself, not to let Azerbaijan and Turkey unite and separate me from Armenia, thus from Russia. So I'd rather take it myself and control it if Armenia is not able to control it, which means that in theory, yes, troops of Iranian army may enter Syunik actually if things start boiling here and Aliyev decides to take it by force. So we will again become a battlefield, which I do not want. So I'm hoping that today the political situation in Armenia is very tricky because everyone is speaking about external parliamentary elections, but Pashinyan doesn't say anything about elections, whereas his team is preparing for new parliamentary elections this year, when the regular elections are to be in the 26th. At the same time, Pashinyan realizes that he cannot provide sufficient votes if he just announces a referendum. People just will not come, and it's a problem. So maybe he will combine referendum and elections, or first get referendum going, for which he already got okay from the West. And if he gets a new constitution adopted, he will present this as a new bottom of trust for him, mandate given by people of Armenia, and then he will be able to get new parliamentary elections and win, and again take majority and do whatever he wants. So this year will be a very, very serious year for Armenia, and the opposition field is preparing very seriously. This is a very serious battle for us. We see if we succeed. I'm only hoping because the West is promoting Pashinyan at the same time preparing a plan B and plan C. Plan B is the Secretary of the Security Council of Armenia, who is directly guided by London, And there is also a Plan C, which is not so obvious, but it's there. And he is the chairman of the Supreme Court. I don't know how you call it in English, but it's an authority which supervises judges. It's an authority which can start, for example, a criminal proceeding against judges. So it's a very significant authority. And the guy who is in charge of it, who is the main person there, is also directly guided by London. So Pashinyan is in a very difficult situation. He knows that his rating has fallen down below 10%. And he knows that the West is preparing Plan B and Plan C. So if he doesn't succeed with this constitution thing, the West can promote another mini color revolution in Armenia and replace Pashinyan with another figure totally controlled by the West. Because these two people that I told you about, these people are, in contrary to Pashinyan, who doesn't even have a university diploma, these two persons are perfectly educated, both educated in the West, one in Great Britain, the other one in the United States. So they're very prepared. It's a very complicated situation, and we see how it goes this year.
Natalia, thank you for that update. We'll have to stay in touch. Yes. I don't want people to forget about Armenia and the significance of what is happening to your country. Many people in America probably cannot even find it on a map, have no idea of its history. But I think on a geopolitical landscape, what is happening in Armenia is connected to everything else that's going on in the world today. I'm going to count on you to keep me updated. Thank you so much. It's good to see you again.
Yes, my best regards to Tanya, please. I mean, even if we're not in touch every day, I'm always, kind of sometimes in my mind talking to you, talking to her, because you are my window to the English-speaking world, because mostly interviews I give are in Armenian or in Russian. So I'm always with you in my mind, Reggie.
Well, thank you. We feel the same way.